Good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 39 of the Fan Experience Podcast. I am your host, Rick Molina, alongside my co-host, Mike Kados. Mike, how you doing tonight?
Doing great, Rick. Glad to be back. You know, obviously we took Thursday off. I hope everyone had a wonderful, healthy, happy Thanksgiving. Enjoyed the 2 football games on Thanksgiving. But, you know, we're glad to be back. But, you know, Rick, you can start it off.
Yeah, glad to be back. I hope everybody had a happy and safe Thanksgiving, socially distant, masks, food, turkey, what have you. And what a weekend it was in sports. Let me tell you. What I wanted to start with this tonight is talking about what happened between the Denver Broncos, obviously, and the New Orleans Saints. It's one of those games that never happened, and it happened where you had 2 quarterbacks who basically were like non-existent, pretty much, with Taysom Hill and this poor kid Kendall Hilton, who they basically brought up from the practice squad.
Is it Hilton or Hinton?
I believe it's Hinton. I'm sorry, Kendall Hinton, who they said come off on the practice squad. You got 3 hours to prepare. The poor kid goes 0 for 9, throws 2 interceptions, completely unprepared, a complete disaster. The Denver Broncos lose 31-3, and it was just a complete sort of, I mean, you can't put into words what took place on Sunday and what led to it, which was the Denver Broncos' clear responsibility by the quarterback room, not to wear a mask, not to socially distance. They came in on a Tuesday to watch film, and they were just like, whatever. I mean, it couldn't happen to me, and look what happened. They literally, in one meeting, they wiped out their whole quarterback situation. Unbelievable. I mean, who could have imagined in a season where you had, postponed games, and you got the issue with the Steelers and Ravens, which we're going to get to in a minute, and you had, guys getting, COVID and what have you, and you're putting all these protocols in, obviously what happened with Tennessee and their issues, and then you have this, where these guys have a meeting, they wipe out their whole quarterback situation. They pretty much, it was a forfeit of a game because it wasn't even a game. I mean, the poor kid was just overmatched. He wasn't a professional quarterback, and they lose 31-3. He didn't even take the first snap of the game. I think he went to like a running back or something. And it goes to just show the level of irresponsibility. But it was just sad to see. And Vic Fangio, the head coach of the Broncos, clearly pissed off. He was completely upset. And he's saying he's going to deal with that. But it was just incredible to see that, man. And, for the Broncos now, they need to they contain that virus, but now set the rules straight over there. Like Fangio needs to just put the hammer down on them, and the league needs to come down on them, because no Bronco fan or Saints fan or NFL fan should have had to sit there at 4:00 and watch that game. I mean, it was just awful. I mean, it was just brutal. I mean, it was just tough to watch. I mean, thank God we had Chiefs and Bucks, but if you're a Broncos fan, if you're a Saints fan, that was just awful to watch, Mike. And, I know you're watching as well, and, your thoughts on that.
Yeah. And I love Matt's question here.
We'll get to that in a minute, Matt.
Yeah, we're definitely going to touch on that. But yeah, I mean, what could you expect? I mean, it's a practice squad wide receiver gets called up to start against the New Orleans Saints.
Yeah.
I mean, you obviously knew what was going to happen. Vegas knew it was going to happen. They made a 16.5 point spread, 11 points higher than it was, 24 hours before. Yeah. And you just, and the fact of the matter is, the Broncos, I mean, obviously let's get into the Ravens and the Broncos and
let's get to that, because the Ravens and the Broncos, and this goes to Matt's question, they got moved to tomorrow at 3:45.
Yeah, we're still in week 12, people.
And we're still in week 12, and the Ravens and Steelers, and it's kind of like it's taken the sort of the sizzle out of the game. It was supposed to happen on Thanksgiving. Then the Ravens couldn't contain the issue with the COVID in the locker room for Sunday's game. And then they had to move it to Wednesday. And first things first, if you're the Baltimore Ravens, whoever this strength and conditioning coach was walking around with symptoms and no mask, that guy's got to go. Sorry. Mm-hmm. Fire the guy, fire his boss, clean house. Secondly, if you're John Harbaugh and the Ravens hierarchy over there, you got to just sort of be like, what's going on? Again, drop the hammer there as well. I think what's going on, there's a lack of accountability in these teams just not taking this seriously. Look what it's done. Look what it's done to the schedule. And thirdly, they can't complain. Because the Broncos were able to sort of contain their sort of situation, where the Ravens, it was just running rampant. I mean, it was just crazy over there. And so it's going to be interesting. I think, is this the first 3:45 Wednesday afternoon game?
I think so. It's not
I've
the first Wednesday game, but they had one in 2012. But I just, it just strikes a chord with me because, they're pushing this. First off, I don't like Ravens Steelers games. I just don't like watching them.
Okay.
I understand that a lot of NFL loves them, and I don't know. I just don't have a thing for either team. I don't like
the AFC North, baby, man. That's
I know. I just don't like either team, and they're boring games. I just feel like it's field goals all day
it's
long.
defensive struggles. I mean,
I understand that, and I understand that whole defense wins, and people want to see defense, but I don't know. They're just boring to me. But they're sitting there in 6 days of postponements,
right?
For this game, and the Broncos, can't even get 24 hours, and I mean, Drew Lock is cleared to play right now.
Right.
Why couldn't they play this game on Tuesday?
Well, I don't think he was cleared Sunday. I think that
he wasn't cleared on Sunday. That's my point. They should have postponed it. If they're sitting there postponing every other game, why not postpone this game a couple of days to get Drew Lock back into the mix of things? It's all about the money. They knew they weren't going to get the ratings for Broncos Saints, and that's why they didn't push it. And I think it's absolutely, it's unfair to give it to the one side, because Ravens Steelers obviously draws a big crowd, but to say, you know what, fuck you to the Broncos. I mean,
well, here's where I disagree, because Ravens Steelers was going to be primetime Thursday night Thanksgiving, right? And the NFL had to push it back. The reason they played this game is because the outbreak of COVID wasn't as severe as it was with the Ravens, right? The outbreak was the quarterbacks. It was just the quarterbacks. It was Drew Lock. It was whoever the other two guys were.
Yeah, it was all the
and that's where they were able to contain it. And so the league said, okay, if it's just there, we're able to contain it, nobody else is infected, they can go out and play. The Ravens, man, I mean, it was all over. Like, it was, everybody had it, and the league had no choice. You can't expect
them to play with no quarterbacks. I mean, come on. When you're pushing everything else back, there's no reason you couldn't push the others back.
No,
and now you have 2 Tuesday games next week because of this Ravens.
Yeah, but fiasco. I mean, but whose fault is that? It's the Ravens and that strength conditioning.
So then just cancel the game and forfeit it and give it to the Steelers.
You can't forfeit. No, you can't forfeit an NFL game. You got to play that game. You got to find a way to play the game. You play the game, man. I mean, as much as the people, I know people are upset.
Week 18. Don't just keep pushing it a day.
But they were trying to.
And then tomorrow when they go and travel, and who's to say, like, they're calling for snow or whatever. What if there's complications? And then
well, I think they traveled today. Did they? I thought they left today.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think the running backs that were cleared are traveling tomorrow.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, the Steelers are going to win this game. Obviously, it's going to be RG3, so it's going to, it's because
Lamar.
I mean, it's not like Lamar has been lighting it up this year either. Yeah, but
exactly.
It is what it is. We can go all day with this, but
absolutely we can.
We do have a guest coming on, so we're gonna gonna wrap it up. But I mean, you want to say a few words, and then also give a word from our sponsors here.
Yeah, so I mean, just to sort of wrap this part of the show up again. I mean, the Denver Broncos, man, they really need to sort of just fix get to these quarterbacks and get to the whole team and be like, take this seriously. I think the one underlying thing is that I don't know that there's a lot of COVID fatigue and people aren't taking this seriously. And look what has happened to the schedule. And the league is not joking around. They're like, look, if it's contained and you guys got players, you're going to play. If it's rampant and we can't, it's an issue, then we'll push a game back. And look, the league, I don't think it's about money. I think people think it's about money or whatever. No, I just think the league says if they have enough guys to field the team and they can play, they're going to play. But if it's a mess like the Ravens were, we're gonna push it back and hold off. But just this portion of the show is brought to you by playthefieldnow.com. Go to playthefielddating.com where you find your MVP. If you're looking for a sports community, if you're looking to start a softball team, if you're looking to find your perfect mate, go to playthefielddating.com. We have the beta version. You can put your profile up. It's kind of like a baseball card. And you can find, as we like to say here at Play the Field, you can find your MVP at playthefielddating.com. So without further ado, we'd like to bring on our guest. His name is Ben Osborne. Oh, go ahead. He's a sports writer and editor. And we are glad to have him on the show. Ben.
What's up, guys?
What's up? It is Rick Molina Mikados. Thank you for coming on. How you doing tonight?
Good. Thanks for having me.
No problem. How are you doing? How was your Thanksgiving?
My Thanksgiving was good. Saw some family, not too much for obvious reasons, but it was good. Ate a lot of good food.
Yeah.
Watched a little football, as you guys talked about. Not as much as we're used to the last few years, but it was a
Not
good
many
one.
football teams were playing on that day.
No, not as many as we're used to, for sure.
Yeah. So Ben, I wanted to start with your love of sports and where it all started, and you have a passion for the Dodgers. So can you tell our viewers how it started with your dad and the Dodgers and growing up watching the Dodgers?
Yeah, I mean, my parents joke that I, learned to read with box scores and the daily newspaper. So I just was talking to my mailman today. I don't know. He's wearing a Chiefs hat, and I was like, "You like the Chiefs?" And he's like, "Yeah." And he didn't really explain it. And then he's like, "And I like the Sox." And I live in Jersey, so you don't see too much of either of those teams. And I was like, "Okay." And he's like, "What are you? Giants and Yankees?" And I was like, "Well, I am a Giants fan, but actually I'm a Dodger fan." Why are you a Dodger fan? Blah, blah. So anyway, it comes up a lot, especially with us winning the World Series. But my grandfather
for that.
grew up in Brooklyn, East 5th Street, maybe like a mile from Ebbets Field. But he moved in 1940. He moved out to Chicago. And so then my dad was born in 1947. The Dodgers moved in 57. And by that time, they were just Dodger fans, they weren't happy they left Brooklyn, but it wasn't, you hear a lot of stories about people that lived there and they, screw the Dodgers, and then they became Met fans or whatever, but they were just, it was obviously a very compelling roster that moved out there with Koufax and Duke, they were a great team. It wasn't a terrible team that moved. So, my dad just liked the Dodgers, and then he ended up living in we were in Central California, where I was born, probably a little closer to Giants country, but definitely went to games when I was super little out there, and then moved to New York when I was 4 or 5, and we just were hooked. And, I think he would be passionate to this day, but it didn't hurt that he had a son that loved sports, that loved the Dodgers too. And just kind of fed off one another. And so, always go see him at the Mets, the rare times they've played the Yankees. We've been to Boston, DC, Philly every year. It's just a great bond. I mean, it's, I'm going through a bunch of stuff. We could talk about my profession in a second, but I'm actually unemployed for the first time in a long time, for about a week now. And I have so much stuff that I've just kind of lugged from place to place. Even if it predated working, it just became work was where I kept all my memorabilia. And I have a ticket stub from the 74. I went to the A's Dodgers World Series I was not alive. My mother was 8 months pregnant, but they went to Dodgers A's in 74. Yeah. And so I'm pretty sure, if you count that this was the first year I didn't, every year of my life, including 0 -2 months, I'd seen them at least once in person. So that was a little bittersweet about this year. And I think we wouldn't have been risky enough to go, but my father actually had foot surgery in late September. So, right when we had started to be if they make the World Series, do you think we could do it smartly? But then, I wasn't going to go, but it certainly might have been dumb even with him. And I certainly wasn't going to go without him. So long story short, amazing season. It was so fun to follow them for the 60 games in the postseason, but also just there's that extra boost when you've seen it, whether you went to 1 game or 5 games, and, you get that extra feel from being there in person. And, as this being the fan experience pod, it was a different experience this season. Obviously, for any sport, I haven't gotten to go to anything that I love, but it was extra poignant with this baseball team that I'd literally never missed them for an entire year. And so, but we won, so that's life.
That's what matters. Now, you and I are probably close to the same age. I'm about 42, going to be 43 in a couple of weeks. But, as far as experience, the 88 World Series, I think you might have been about the same age. I do remember Eckersley, Bob Gibson, the home run. Were you watching that with your dad? I mean, was that sort of that moment, that iconic moment of Gibson hitting that home run?
I remember it vividly. That one's really weird with my family too. That was actually when my grandmother on my mom's side had cancer, and she died like that week. And so we were in Chicago. Both of my parents were from Chicago, and we were staying at my dad's mom's. His dad, the Dodger fan, has been dead for a long time, and she wasn't really a baseball fan. But in any event, so we were there, like at this where some of the history had started. But it was a very sad 2 weeks in our family. Yeah. So that game in particular, yes, watching it with family. The fact that I was an hour earlier, I mean, by that time I was staying up late for baseball games anyway, but it was even probably a little earlier because it wasn't as late in the Midwest. But it was like bitter. It was like a little bittersweet. And obviously it was only game one, but I think even if baseball is not as prone to momentum as other sports, it did kind of feel like they won the series that night. And sure enough, the A's never really recovered. So yes, we'll always remember that team and that series, but it was just like a weird time. We had gone to see them, if you guys you remember, Rick, as almost my age. I mean, the Mets were supposed to destroy them.
Yep, I remember that.
And
was that game 4, Socha?
Game 4 was Socha's home run. That was a Sunday night. It was supposed to be Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and there was a rain out. We actually had tickets for game 5, which should have been Sunday night, but it ended up being like a Monday day game, which we went to the day after the Socha home run, and the Dodgers won that one. I guess to go up 3-2. I think the Mets actually won game 6.
Yeah, that was the Hershiser series. Yeah, well, he went game 7. I remember that.
Yeah. David Cohen pitched well in game 6. But so, I mean, certainly a memorable year, and then you never expect they're not going to be back till now. We went in 81 too when they played the Yankees. I went to game 2, which the Dodgers lost to be down 2-0. I was 6 years old, and then my dad actually went to game 6 and saw them win it at Yankee Stadium, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Well, certainly congratulations for them winning this year. They look like they got a team that can, that could sit there and build a little bit of a run. Obviously Mookie Betts was a huge addition, and they got him 12 years now.
12 years. Yeah, no, they are very.
They're going to have a couple of chances.
They are. They've managed to keep refilling the farm system, and I don't think. They're not. I was just reading a long Seager story. I don't think they will keep Corey Seager and Walker Buehler, and Cody Bellinger. One of them they'll probably have to let walk, but that will be so they can keep. I don't think they want 4 guys taking up 200 million. So that'll be sad, and people will be mad and call them cheap. But I think it'll be in the interest of continuing to have a age diversity in their and cost balance in their roster. I think they should be good for a long time.
Can you call them cheap after the money they paid Mookie Betts?
No, but
Yeah, I know. It's a big market. It's a big market team, and that's just the way it is, and that's how the cookie crumbles when it comes to sports fans and how they view their teams. Obviously, you with the Dodgers have seen their success, and Rick has seen a fair share of his success being a Yankee fan. Last time the Mets won a World Series, I was 1 year old, so I don't remember that for damn sure. So I'm excited with the new ownership and the new culture that's coming around. So I'm hoping that within the next few years we can knock off the Dodgers. One of these next few years and put in a World Series title. So let's move on to football a little bit, because your favorite football team is the Giants, and they are first place. How are we feeling about your 4-7 New York Giants?
Pretty good. I mean, I'm not putting too much stock in this season either way. I mean, they we're tied for first because the division's absolutely terrible. But I think for the first time in a while, like the roster is heading in the right direction. It seems like it was a really good draft. Judge seems good. I'm not I'm not totally sold on him or Daniel Jones yet, but I see some potential, and just to have young, promising players is what they haven't. They won with relatively veteran teams, in 07 and 2011, and then kind of hung on to that core, which was understandable. You're trying to eke out another, good season or two, and then. Eli aside, it wasn't even that the roster was old the last couple of years. It was just bad. So, that's kind of the most depressing of all. So to see, promise, good secondary, Darnay Holmes and, Logan Ryan, it's been fun to see them evolve. And I think that, one of my group chats is there's a crazy Eagles fan, and I think I've been relatively respectful of all that they've done. And then we started arguing last night, and I'm not even talking about this year. My premise was that they're going in the wrong direction and we're going in the right, and so I just said, stop talking shit about where the Giants have been. Who's going to have the better record next year?
Yeah,
and I say it'll be the Giants, because I think the Eagles are in a similar position to the post Super Bowl Giants, where they're just, obviously the quarterback is a bizarre mystery, but in general, it just seems like the roster is heading in the wrong direction and the Giants is heading in the right one. So I think, in that division and guys keep growing a little bit, next year I could see us 9-7 or 10-6, and I'd be thrilled. And again, to reference the name of your pod, hopefully we can experience it in person. I certainly can't remember a year I didn't go to a Giants game, so that's been bittersweet again. And so hopefully be back in there next year and watching, a pretty promising team, I hope.
Yeah, well, if they make it to the Super Bowl next year, we'll come along with you, because we're going to SoFi next year. That's our goal to go.
That's our goal, to go to SoFi.
The Super Bowl at SoFi. So
I love it. Have you guys ever been to a Super Bowl?
Never.
No.
Me neither.
I went to the Times Square thing where they had it in 13 here. They had the whole Super Bowl thing, but I've never been to a game.
Yeah, no, me neither. That's a pretty big gap for me. So
yeah, no, definitely. For many people. So obviously it's no surprise that you grew up a huge sports fan. So where did that? Did you want to go into the sports industry, and it was all journalism all the way? What got
pretty
you
much
onto that route?
Yeah, thank you for giving me the chance to talk about it. I look, much respect to anyone that's a lifelong fan, but I've always been proud that, yes, coming with that, hey, Ben, here's the paper. Why don't you entertain yourself for 2 hours? Or here's Sports Illustrated. It wasn't just that I was loving what I was reading or learning about or watching. It quickly became, I think I was like a lot of kids. I guess when I was 8 or 9, I'm I'm going to play baseball or NBA, but once, once I started to play travel and high school and the world gets a little bigger, it was okay, I'm going to get to play college sports, but that's it. So I pretty quickly said to myself, well, I can't see a life outside of this. I can't play it. I do like English. I love reading. I've loved these newspapers. I love these magazines. I'm going to write about sports. So I would say by 13, 14, that was my goal. And I never really, I've never gotten off of that dream or path to this day. So yeah, started as a fan and then just said I want to be a sports journalist, and did it. My school had like a little, Mamaroneck High School, where I went to high school, had like a little TV studio because the town TV studio was there. So I did the sports for the high school station. I was the sports editor of the school paper that came out 3 times a year. Went to college at George Washington, first day on campus, walked into the school paper, how can I do sports for you guys? Covered women's soccer, baseball, women's basketball, whatever they needed. And my senior year, got to work at the Washington Post in the sports department, which was probably the best in the country at that time.
Yeah.
And I was just on my way. I mean, there was no, kind of a very average, mediocre student for 80% of my classes, but AP English, journalism, any like reading, writing stuff I could take, I took and worked really hard in those. So I was very, very focused. And it was just like, it was always hand in hand, like a love of the sport and then a love of the, writing about
the written word, the
craft. So it was really, it's been an incredible, I feel very, very fortunate, because to get to do your passion. And I think I'll be fine, and I'm talking to people, but it's the first time in a while that I've had to like contemplate, I think I can write no matter what. I know enough people, but like, I think you guys have day jobs. Like, am I going to get another full-time job in sports? I think so, but it's the first time in a long time I haven't had one. I can definitely do part-time. I can write for places, and that will be fun. Like, there's no way I'm leaving this industry till I'm like out of, till I retire. But can I make good money and have it be my full focus? I think yes, but again, it's not, I don't have a full-time job at the moment doing it. So we'll see. But I'll be into it, and who knows? Like, I don't know what it's like when it's just as a fan. Like, maybe that's more refreshing. I mean,
yeah. It could be. I mean, at least you're not a Jets fan, because here's some of the rants that I go on here. But Ben, let me ask you this:
can write about that for days.
Yeah. Now that you're separated from what you were doing, have you thought about maybe doing something? I say for yourself, creating something for yourself in sports, like in terms of like writing something for yourself, or creating something like a slam or like a Bleacher or whatever it is that's out there. Has that idea crossed your mind?
I mean, people have certainly asked me. I mean, my problem is I don't. I can be responsible with my own money, and I like getting a paycheck and stuff. Yeah. But like, just to find, like, I don't want to like burn through whatever money I have. I don't necessarily know how to ask for it, and it's a hard business. Like, sports is obviously massive. Pro sports are making a ton of money. The biggest media companies traditionally have made a lot, although even the ESPNs of the world are struggling. It's expensive to make good sports content and to profit on it. I mean, brands that we all love I don't think their owners are not necessarily getting rich. Like, I've been very close to it, so it's not like I can't. I mean, if I knew that I could go to someone and say, "Hey, give me $100,000 and I'm going to turn it into $1 million, making great sports content," of course I would do that. But I can't do that in good conscience. I've seen really good plans fail. So it's the business part of it that I don't have the passion for, / like maybe know too much. And then, it seems to me like you guys are doing this as a passion play. Like, hopefully someone picks it up. Hopefully it starts to make a few bucks, but that takes a lot of patience. So, if I did it, it would probably be more that way, because as much as I'd like a lot of seed money to go start something, like, I don't have that business plan. Now, what I might do I was on a call before you guys talking to like a relatively new startup. I mean, I do have a lot of like content ideas. So if someone else wants to take care of the money part and either risk it or they have the plan of how it's going to work, and that's not my responsibility, it's just to make the shit, you know, that might be fun. I would say if you compare Slam, which is a teeny, you know, it's growing, but it's a relatively small operation. And certainly in my time, it had that kind of startup vibe versus Bleacher Report, which is Turner, Warner Media, kind of corporate. I think I fit better at the smaller thing. So, you know, I may hopefully maybe in a couple months we catch up and I'm at somewhere small, but I think it would be unlikely that it would be like my personal idea and my backing, because again, I'm not going to create it with my own bank account, and I don't know how to ask or promise someone that it's a good investment. I mean, it's hard. There's a lot of stuff out there, you know.
I mean, just photos alone for, you know, for sports websites, you know, the Getty images, it's crazy. The prices on those,
they're nuts.
You know, it's
crazy,
unbelievable. I mean, you know, obviously, you know, Getty Images has it down pat. You know,
yeah, no, you're absolutely right, and it's like obviously there's people on, particularly on social, that are just ripping them all day long, and that's fine. But then they're eliminating their chance. They can't actually make money because then
once you start monetizing it, then you got a lawsuit.
Exactly. And then if you want to do it on the up and up, to your point, it's extremely expensive, and it's gotten a lot more expensive. I mean, in my early Slam days, you know, they were like, you know, relatively like independent photographers could get credentialed to games and you could buy from them directly. But the NBA really, like all the sports now, made it just kind of a monopoly. So it gave them greater control, and which is probably smart business for them, but to, like you guys are saying, it made it really cost prohibitive for a small, you know, in those days, magazines, now website, to do it legally is really hard because of the cost.
And Ben, let me ask you this:
that's a great point that people just don't even think about.
It's great. Let me ask you: was the NBA the first you covered? What was the first team or sport that you, you know, out of college that you started covering? And what was that experience like to be a young guy walking into a locker room with all these guys and these pros? I mean, what's that like?
I guess started with college, both while I was in it, and then I would do a couple things for papers, and that wasn't that intimidating because, you know, you're talking to peers. My first, Slam was the first time I went to an NBA game, which was pretty wild. And then the very first feature I did for Slam, which was Slam 25, like probably early 98, it came out, was on Mark Jackson, who was my favorite athlete of all time. And I got to do a 2,000-word feature on him. And I flew to Indianapolis and interviewed him at practice, and Larry Bird was his head coach. I mean, I don't know, like there was like jitters all day long. It was wild. And I never told, I was just you know, like I just wanted to be as professional as possible. I mean, I was 23 years old.
Wow.
And so I just played it real straight, and I'm sure I looked, you know, pretty ridiculous, but at least but it wasn't like shocking. I don't think Slam was new, but Slam's writers were young, so it would have been more shocking if like I showed up and I was from the New York Times or something. But still, I was definitely the youngest person, you know, at Pacers practice that day. And then it came out, and I went to a Knick game, and I gave it to him, and that's when I like told him that I was a fan. And then it, you know, then as I like got credibility, and I had nothing to be ashamed of, and I was so professional, like with everyone else I dealt with, then it just became like an outward thing, and now he knows about it, and, you know, we'll go back and forth on Twitter or Instagram, like fully in the open, and I've written now many times about how much I loved him. But that was the first moment, and it couldn't have been a more like a real fan thing. And really that whole year, I mean, I went to the finals in '98, so only a year out of college at Bulls, the last
Bulls, dance, right?
Last Dance, yeah. I was at game 5, so his last game at home before they went. No, game 4. They won big. They lost game 5 to force it back. So I was at his second to last game there. And yeah, I mean, it was crazy. Like, Slam was an incredible experience. And, for one of those reasons was, like they were letting, we were kids, like covering the NBA finals. It was really, really amazing. And I don't think I took it for granted at all. I felt very lucky then. But looking back, it's like it's really wild.
Yeah, I could just imagine. Obviously being in the presence of greatness. I mean, obviously, I knew everyone can debate all they want who the greatest of all time is, but my vote goes to Jordan. And you were rocking the Jordan 1s that day, right?
I went to also that game at the Garden. Because the guys that were above me at Slam, Tony Gervino and Russ Bankston, who are both absolute legends, they were actually in Portland, like at Nike and Jordan, working on what would become like this all Jordan issue we put out. And so like there was definitely, Slam was only getting one credential to a Knicks Bulls game in 1998. But with them out of town, I got to go, and it was a Sunday night, and they were super jealous. I mean, just the game in general was kind of cool, and then all of us as sneakerheads, the fact that he was wearing the 1s for the last time, that was super cool. So it feels like a whole other era of my life in the NBA, and probably makes me sound super old, but like how cool that my career dates to like seeing him in person in The Last Dance, and then all of LeBron's career. And I feel super connected to the game today, but it really goes back to that. I did catch the tail end of that. I caught it all as a fan, and even got to catch the tail end of that as a professional. It was really, really awesome, and something I'll always be proud of. And the young folks in the business, they'll never get to say they covered Jordan at the Bulls, and I did. So it's awesome.
Yeah, obviously I said, greatest of all time, and somebody wants to put in a vote for you as the greatest of all time.
What up, Eric?
And then our guest, Aaron, for Thursday night.
I love that you guys are having him on. That's awesome.
Yeah. Small world, right?
Yeah.
That's we're pumped for that. So obviously this year has brought forward a lot of unprecedented events in the world of sports. And as a journalist, how was it covering? Obviously there was a time where no sports were being played at all.
Yep.
And then the sports came back, and then obviously it was all Zoom conferences and virtual press conferences. Talk to us a little bit about those difficulties and handling this year as far as journalism goes.
I mean, it's been really, really hard. I think that, this year, 2 of the weirdest days in my professional life were both the first 3 months of 2020. I mean, look, Bleacher Report had more or less a 24/7 news staff, but many of those people are just super pros, and they're kind of working on shifts, and like for all the weird things that happen on the weekend or at night, like an editor-in-chief who's like thinking more about pre-planning features and things like that. Like, my point is, like, most weekends, I'm reading stories and stuff, but I'm not being bothered in most nights. So first you had the Kobe thing on a Sunday.
Yeah.
This was like obviously a tragedy, but also like we had a response, like people were going to get news about it. So are we going to just cry or are we going to create stuff? So that was a Sunday afternoon. And then it's like all of a sudden I'm on a hangout with 20 people, like what's social doing? What's news doing? What are our top writers doing? Crazy. Then, so just a very memorable day that, again, maybe someone's like, oh, I'm sure you're working 24/7. Again, I'm watching Twitter, I'm on emails, but not like where I have to make decisions. But for Kobe, I did. Then you jump ahead, a month and a half, and you'd seen obviously like something was in the air, like something was coming. There were going to be guidelines. I remember I went to She Believes. I have a daughter that just turned 13, huge fan, great. I love bringing her to a bunch of stuff, but she's a great soccer player. We went to She Believes Cup at Red Bull Arena on March 8th.
Yep.
Awesome game. US won 1-0, like in the 90th minute. Julie Ertz with a header. And I did say to her, I was like, this might be it for a while for games. Then that Wednesday, go to work. The boss says, if you're not prepared, if you need to come in tomorrow, fine, but you don't have to. Like today's kind of the last day at the office. I'm a huge St. John's fan forever. So I went to the Big East that night, March 11th. And, obviously Big East tournament, if you guys have ever been, super festive, people drinking, just tradition. It was eerie as hell, obviously. And it didn't even really feel that smart. Like, it was maybe like, I think tickets on StubHub were like $2. Big East is usually, I mean, in the old days, $100, even post Syracuse or whatever, it's still a $30, $40, $50 ticket for a Wednesday night. Nobody there. Leave at halftime. NJ Transit back. Get home at like 9:30. And again, normally that's it, man. I'll check in with people tomorrow on Hangout. Then Rudy Gobert happens, and all of a sudden, same thing, just like the Kobe thing. Like I'm talking to the heads of the company at 10 o'clock on a Wednesday night because, as fans we're crushed, as people in the field were nervous, but we also have a job. Like if we don't do it, they're just going to get their news somewhere else. So same thing. What angles are we doing? Who's working? Who's going to write that wasn't going to write tonight? And at first, it wasn't like the lack of games was pretty rough, but there was so much news and rumors and this thing's being canceled. So we were like pretty busy for a month. And then it certainly picked up again in, July, but that like April, May-ish was rough. There was just nothing doing. You couldn't, be with anyone in person. So it was like, from an overall volume perspective, it was really hard because it's like, what are we going to talk about? A lot of my job was focusing on features, and the problems there was like, for one thing, for text only, when everything was up in the air, it was like, what is an athlete going to talk about? It was like during normal sports schedule, like we always wanted to go deeper. We want to get to know them, but it's always in the context of like, how's the season going? And even once, you knew that sports was coming back, but no fans, even if you couldn't talk to the athlete in person on the phone, you had the perspective, again, just the context. What's it going to be like with no fans, or how are you going to stay safe? But for like 2 months, there was so much up in the, like, how can you talk to an active professional athlete when when neither you nor the subject, like, it's just a whole different world. Like you could talk about some totally different stuff, but it was just such an unusual territory. So there was a couple months where it was really like, we don't know what the hell to do. So that was really challenging. One thing that was very hard for my group, which has basically been disbanded, is that we were doing BR Mag. which was like great text, but we had this hope this year we were going to start to make a lot of them. 1 or 2 a month was going to become like a video piece. You need access. You need to be able to travel.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, obviously at first there's just fear. Then some outlets are probably starting to be allowed to, but we save money or keep people safe, whatever. There was basically a travel ban for my company.
Yeah.
So you can't now make it good video. So that went out the window. That sucked. And I do think that the better feature writers, like one of our best is this woman, Miran Fader. She actually is she just announced she's going to the Ringer. But she's talked about how lately, like, people have gotten used to it. I think for features, and we're having this conversation feels pretty natural. Like, yeah. I think that people have adapted to this stuff, and you're still seeing some really nice personality profiles, be it in sports or music or politics. Like, I think this, people can make a good connection this way. I think beat writers are really struggling. I don't have a lot of experience there. Slam was pretty timeless, and Bleacher Report, we were doing, again, more like longer term things where you need great interviews, but you don't need to be at every game. Mm-hmm. I am a member of like the Professional Basketball Writers Association, and I was on a call yesterday with a bunch of people. Like, it's hard. It's hard to do when your job is like information and relationships with the mm-hmm. players and coaches. Like, I think those guys, it's really hard for. And if all they can do is watch it on TV, and sure, someone with good writing skill and a good eye for the game, like, hopefully can still distinguish themselves. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that makes a beat writer for a great newspaper or website kind of a better value than Joe Schmo that's just watching on TV is that they actually know the players, they know the coaches. They're not getting that. And when they do these post-game Zooms, it's 5 minutes and there's 8 people on it. Like, that is a worse experience than getting to chat with the dude at practice. So you see what I'm saying? Like, yeah. For a feature where you need 45 minutes, I think most writers would certainly still prefer the in-person, but 45 minutes of someone's attention, if you ask good questions and they're engaged, I think the product can be pretty similar. But if you're covering a full season and you're used to like little whispers every day, you get to see the coach and the player every single day for 9 months, yeah. And suddenly you're on a Zoom with 9 guys for 5 minutes every 3 days. Yeah. Like, that's rough.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I empathize with those guys. I just don't have a ton of personal experience with it. And again, for Bleacher, it was more, if there's news happening, like, we're not necessarily making it, we're just aggregating it. So when there was all the cancellations, people were busy, and when games came back, people were busy. We didn't have beat reporters per se. And then for features, yes, really hard when there was like no sports context. But once people knew what they were doing, again, I think the interviews over Zoom have been better than writers maybe expected. Yeah, I'm doing a story for Slam, and I had to do it all on, WhatsApp or FaceTime, and it was fine. I didn't, of course, I'd rather like go to a practice in person, but it was not bad. So I think, news and features not really affected, but I think beat writers would tell you, like, I don't know if you guys have had any on, or if you have one on, I'm sure they would bemoan the state of, it's just hard. Like, they're in the information business and they're not able to get the information.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I completely understand what you're saying.
Yeah, it's tough. And Ben, there's something that you wrote that caught my attention. When you cover these guys, like you were saying, you get to know them or whatever. Is it tough, like, when you know them, you see all the work put in, and you got to write a tough article on them? Like, is it tough for you as a writer, as a journalist, to write that? Or is it, it's professional, it's business, this is my job, and I got to do it?
I mean, I would think it's very hard. I mean, Slam doesn't do that. Like, and Bleacher, Bleacher has, for the most part, it was the commentary was often from non-reported, like people watching on TV. Like when we did like a deep story on someone, usually it was positive. So like the people that have to do that again are ones that I have a lot of respect for, but for all of my experience in this field, the least I have is dealing directly with beat writers who are the ones that, you know, go to the most games, engage with these guys the most, and like they have to write if the player messes up, they have to write about it. So I don't necessarily envy them. I think it would be very hard. I've written very, very few negative stories in my life, and really not even edited many negative ones. If there was a relationship, again, like sure, Bleacher will run like some negative, you know, commentary, but it's usually from a guy that's not even done any interviews. It's just an opinion piece. So I don't think it's that hard for people when they're not even engaging, but it's that guy or that woman that's going to 80 NBA games or 150 baseball games and like has to have a cordial relationship with the player to engage with them every day, but then also has to write, you know, negatively about them. I think for the most part, if as long as it's no cheap shots, like I think that, you know, most athletes understand it, but certainly when you've had like ugly incidents, it's usually beat writers that, you know, the player feels burned because they're like, I've been polite to this person for 4 months every day, and now you're bashing me. You know, I'm sure that's very challenging, and you know, in a way, it's just kind of like professional luck that the places I ended up, I guess. Like it's not like I ever said I'll never be a beat writer for a daily paper. I never had that job, and I think it would be I do think it would be challenging, you know, and I prefer to be, I'm extremely, I think in many ways these guys are pretty underrated, to be honest. I just don't think we've almost been like desensitized to the athletic greatness that allows us to yell at the TV or say someone sucks. Like, you know, I try to really stay there. My general position is incredibly pro athlete in terms of just what they're accomplishing. So I'm frankly glad, whether it was luck or I made my own luck, that I've never been I understand there are positions in this field where you have to do it, but I've never had to, and I'm glad, because it would not be easy for me, because I was a fan first, and I've never lost that. So it's hard for me to, you know, I just don't even like that type of fandom either. But whatever, if it's not your job and you want to yell, but like I'm not the guy ever that was you suck or throwing things on the field or you know, angry Twitter posts. Like this is a celebration as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't go on Twitter or rant, but on Sundays at 1 o'clock when the Jets are on, it's not pretty, man. It's just not pretty.
The Jets' incompetence might call for, you know,
just a little bit of negative reviews. They might be worthy of some negative comments.
Of course. And if everyone was positive, and you know, then where's the debate? But I'm just kind of more agreeing with what Rick was saying, that generally speaking, these guys and gals are unbelievable at what they do, and it's hard to turn around and shit on them for a mistake that, you know, by a regular person is not even fathomable.
I mean, they work hard for 15, 20 years just to get to where they are. They throw 2 interceptions, or they miss a couple of free throws, or strike out 4 times, you know, and it's like, you know, they're going to get killed for it, but they worked hard for 20 years to get here, and you totally just going to diminish that, that effort that got them there. So
I think, Slam's whole thing was like, let the player be themselves, respectful and show your personality. And then, Bleacher is much more far ranging, but when I was assigning a one-on-one profile of a person, the hope was to really, it wasn't like go write a positive piece, but it was just like get to know the essence of this athlete. And if you do that, it's almost always going to be positive because there's incredibly commendable things about this person that got them where they are. They didn't just wake up and, like you're saying, it's years and years of incredible amount of practice. And, we're lucky to get to watch it and enjoy it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we've carried on for quite a bit here. But we would love to, thank you for coming on, and we want to wish you the best of luck. We, obviously, it's unprecedented times. It's right now it's tough all around, but we, no doubt that you're gonna find something, and we'd love to stay in touch as well. See if we can enlist some of your help for playing the field and the fan experience down the line as well.
It would be my pleasure. And you guys, I like you guys are taking a fun approach to things. And I think that, that's what, we need original kinds of ways to talk about sports. And you guys are doing that. So
thank you, Ben. And listen, if you whenever you want to come on, I'd love to have you back on with the NBA season starting. And talk about that. LeBron's going into his 16th year or something like that. I mean, the guy's a machine, incredible. So have you come back on and we can talk some about that. And as the seasons are going, have you come on the show and talk more sports.
Absolutely, it'd be my pleasure, guys. Thank you,
Ben. Thank you very much, man. We wish you all the best.
Very much.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, have a good one.
You too.
Thank you.
Bye.
That was Ben Osborne, everybody. Great. Man, that's incredible. You know what I did want to ask her, what was it? What do you think? Like covering Jordan must have been an event.
You want to pop him right back on? If he
wants to, I don't know if he's okay.
You good?
Yeah.
Is he good? He's all right. Yeah.
There we go.
No, Ben, just go in the chat and thank you guys. But
quickly, when Jordan was playing, it was an event, right? And then LeBron is just something. What is the difference in covering those two? Like, people don't realize what it was like. Like, when you and I were growing up, Jordan was God. Like, he walked on water, and LeBron is like in a level of himself. But the difference in the way, like, you covered him, you saw him, like, it was something completely different, right?
Well, Mike's had a much, much, much bigger range. When Jordan came in, you still had relatively lax, like, media rules. So, like, early Jordan, which I was not around for,
right?
People had unbelievable access to him. You saw good examples of that in The Last Dance.
Yeah.
And conversely, he was also kind of the first guy that, like, made his own rules and decided, like, I'm going to just blow off our media day, and I'm going to, just do do incredibly controlled interviews, like, literally made his own rules and became, really, really hard to get to. So, like, the few games that I went to, he was doing post-game access for 7 minutes with 45 people around him, either at the locker or more so, like, up on a podium. So no chance to get anything personal whatsoever. LeBron came in with so much hype, had a Jordan template, but I think so he never had there was no period of LeBron's career like early Jordan where writers just got to hang out with him and do whatever. But he also had, I think, like, a little more, like, he also never just, like, said, I'm doing shit my way. Like, again, Jordan would just like the All-Star, like, he would just blow certain things off and just pay the fine. Like, LeBron's never really done that.
Yeah.
So he's just kind of, like, followed the rules, and it's been maybe a little boring. I think he's pretty controlled, but he also says he'll also talk politics. He'll talk music. Yeah. Like, I think that he's played by the rules. He's showing a lot more, like LeBron's whole career, even lately, you're getting a lot more than you got late Jordan, but there was also never like the unfettered access to LeBron. So like the super OG NBA guys like have crazy Jordan stories because literally you could just go in the locker room for an hour and just shoot the shit or go play golf with him. Like, so again, there was a few things that early Jordan that LeBron never had, but considering LeBron came in at an age where he'd only witnessed late Jordan that didn't talk and was very kind of not respectful of media rules or access and just did whatever the hell he wanted. Yeah. I would say the NBA is kind of lucky. I think LeBron's been a pretty good sport about giving access and like living up to the commitment. So I think he's really played it well. But it was always a little controlled. Like you haven't seen, unfiltered LeBron too often. So the Jordan that I covered was really untouchable.
Wow.
I did get to do.
That's incredible.
I did a LeBron story. I was at the game in Boston when they with the Jason Terry dunk when he was on. I think they're 20. It was mid-20s. I think they won 29 in a row. Maybe it was like the 23rd or 24th win in a row.
Okay.
One of the ones that they could have lost. They blew them out, but like one of the harder kind of games on the schedule. And we had prearranged like with his guy and the Heat that I was going to talk to him after the game.
Yeah.
And he did his post game with 10 guys and then gave me like 12 minutes one-on-one in the Boston Garden or TD Bank Garden room. After that game, like Michael Jordan in a 20-game winning streak in a championship season was not, other than Ahmad Rashad, was not giving 12 minutes to anyone. No one from the Sports Illustrated to, and LeBron gave it to, little me from Slam.
Wow.
That's a pretty big
deal. That's crazy.
At basically the peak of his powers. I think I remember the headline was power, and we said LeBron is doing it better than any. You'd have to look at the numbers. Obviously, he's had some great seasons, but that, if that was the second championship year, and his people forget about it because now he's a Laker. The Cavs, like those middle years with Miami, he was playing perfect basketball.
He was unstoppable.
And his popularity was huge. And again, I was lucky enough to get a one-on-one interview like that. Jordan was not doing that. So that alone that's a difference that I could speak to.
Definitely a difference maker right there. Absolutely. Yeah. But let's not forget, Eric said that Ben is the GOAT. So there's no debating.
There it is. No debate there. Ben's the GOAT. Yeah.
Ben's the GOAT.
Thank you guys so much. We'll do it again.
Thank you, Ben. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
Go ahead.
Bye.
So there it is.
Awesome.
So now that for
a
me,
lot
that
of nice tidbits going
so
on. And
so for me, that changes the conversation.
That changes the game a little bit.
Yeah, because LeBron is giving accessibility, whereas Jordan was like, you know what? I don't need to talk to you guys.
Yeah.
And here's the other thing. Now, because he has me thinking about LeBron. LeBron's been to 10 NBA finals. He won 4 of them, lost 6. In between that run, he's had the Warriors to deal with. He's had the Spurs, towards the tail end. He dealt with a young Oklahoma City. I think he's had. Jordan had the Pistons and the Celtics, obviously, but and then overcoming the Lakers. But he's had more obstacles, and I'm starting to wonder.
Okay.
I'm starting to teeter, but we'll see. But anyway, thank you, Ben Osborne.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ben, for coming on.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely want to have you back on again sometime soon.
Yeah. So we want to get into news and notes, and I want to start off with this. Again, that portion of the show is brought to you by thefielddating.com. Go to playthefielddating.com to find your MVP, whether it's starting a softball league, flag football. You want to meet with fans of your favorite team or different teams, go to playthefielddating.com or play the field dating, right? And then playthefieldnow.com and find your MVP.
Yes. Ben just shot us a text real quick that mid to late NBA season he'd love to come back on and definitely talk again.
Yeah, we got to get into the Jordan LeBron debate because I'm telling you, man, I'm starting to teeter, Mike. I'm starting to go King James, but we'll see. Yeah. But let's get into what happened Saturday night. And it's amazing that a YouTuber and an NBA player,
another Mike, do it like Mike, right? Like Mike, right?
Let's do it like Mike.
Different Mike.
Different Mike. A YouTuber by the name of Jake Paul and an NBA player by the name Nate Robinson, and obviously Mike Tyson and Roy Jones, which we'll get to in a second. But it's almost sad that this is what brought boxing back to life. But Jake Paul put to sleep our good friend Nate Robinson. And the worst part of it all, aside from the knockout, was he was wearing Knick colors. I mean, it doesn't get any terrible than that. And, Mike, this was 2 rounds. Nate Robinson pretty much rushed into and ran into two right hands and pretty much got put to sleep. And it was horrible, but I'm glad he's okay. I know you saw the highlights quickly. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, that was brutal to watch. I mean, he just and I love the Rocky memes. Feel like I'm gonna tell my kids this was Jake Paul versus Nate Robinson. Yeah. I'm trying to find the picture here, but to pop it up on the screen, but I can't find a good one real quick. But yeah, I mean, Jake, I didn't even know that I knew that the fight was going to happen, but I didn't really think too much of it. I didn't watch it, but the clips, the highlights, the memes were just.
I mean, the Simba memes are horrible.
The Simba. And you know what? All these the people out there that are making these memes, they're just on point. So kudos to them, and it's no surprise that they're viral and always getting some great attention there because they're just awesome. But it was just
it was bad.
It was bad. It was. And I'm trying to find that. Well, there's the one picture. Here we go. Let me see if I can get this. Nah, I can't do it.
Yeah, it was pretty bad. And then obviously you had Mike Tyson against Roy Jones Jr. Roy Jones by a third round looked like he was having an asthma attack. He looked like he couldn't breathe. He was just hanging on. And I gotta say, for 54 years old, Mike Tyson looked good. He looked energetic. He wanted to keep fighting. I think he didn't really go I think he was pulling some punches. I don't think he was throwing really hard. But he was looking, I mean,
there it is.
There it is. For those of you who didn't see it, I mean, it's been a few days now, but that's pretty ugly. And he's wearing Knick colors. Look, I'm a diehard Knick fan. I bleed blue and orange, but what can you say to that?
Knicks losing multiple sports.
Yeah, pretty much. Boxing and basketball. But no, and so getting back to Mike Tyson, looked pretty good. Look, for his age, he looked great. I was reading now that him and Evander Holyfield wanted to get it on.
Yeah. Oh, and Jake Paul wants to take on McGregor?
Man, listen, stop while you're ahead, my friend. Stop while you're ahead.
Yeah, come on, guy. Easy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Mike Tyson thinks he's Mike Tyson, last year, he was out of shape. He was
right.
He was whatchamacallit, he's battling depression, and he sits there and he works his way back. He loses a lot of weight, gets himself back into fighting shape, and obviously he goes into this fight, and obviously it was going to be a draw no matter what. I mean, there was no judging. There was no judging. It was an exhibition. Yeah. It was an exhibition fight, and I love the one meme with Roy Jones in the corner. Ref, I'm bleeding. It's like no, you're not. That's just Mike. That's just what Mike does to you. but that was funny. And then they were locked up they were locked up for a second, and people saying, "Oh, it's looking like Mike Tyson's going to go for the year right now."
I mean, yeah, it was. But you know what? Like I said, for his age, he looked good. He looked like he wanted to fight. He was in tremendous shape. And then the great thing about it was apparently he was high the whole time. He was apparently he smoked weed before the fight. I guess that's what I heard that somewhere. I mean, look, it's great that he's back out there and doing his thing. The guy's always been a fighter. And listen, I don't know why, but I think I would pay to see a 58-year-old Evander Holyfield against a 54-year-old Mike Tyson. And what does it say about the sport of boxing that a bunch of 50-year-olds are driving interest in the sport? I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, boxing has to do a lot to repair its image. It's got to do a lot to sort of bring, fans back. Obviously, COVID doesn't help it, but bring fans back into the sport like UFC does. And here we are talking about a 46-year-old and a 50-year-old in an exhibition bout talking about boxing, and it's Iron Mike Tyson. I mean, that's crazy. But look, he looked good, man. I'd like to see it again. I would see it again. But Jake Paul has to get knocked out now. Now he's got to fight somebody. He's got to get knocked out.
Yeah, it's just, come on, just slow your roll, guy. Well, at this time, at this time of the night, at this time of the show, we're usually previewing our Thursday night game, but we're still not even done with Week 12. There's not going to be a Thursday night game because that was supposed to be Ravens Cowboys. Mm-hmm. Now that's moved to Tuesday. So everything is all out of whack. You got 54-year-olds boxing. You got football on Wednesday.
I mean, this is COVID, man. It's 2020, man. We only got 30 more days of this left.
Listen, this year has had a lot of crazy changes. Some good, some bad, but this year certainly has brought a lot of challenges, and it's made it harder for us all to connect with our fellow sports fans. Yep. So if you are a big sports fan like Rick and I, and then you need to join our new sports fan community. It's called Playing the Field. Playing the Field, the dating and community app centered around your sports fan lifestyle. It has a great sports focus interface from their profile trading cards in your team's favorite colors down to our bubblegum in-app currency. The best part is that right now we are still in beta and it is 100% free to join, and you will also get extra in-app bubblegum that you can trade in when our premium features get added in a few months. Go to playthefielddating.com and sign up now to buddy up, recruit teammates, or find your MVP.
Absolutely.
And again, thank you everyone for, coming on, supporting us on this podcast. We truly appreciate it. We have a lot of fun talking to you, talking to our amazing guests, such as Ben and Aaron, to come on Thursday night. We have a few more episodes left in this year. We will cut it short right before the holidays come around, and we will be back with season 2 early next year. But we've had a blast, since July 21st with our first episode. And
time flies, huh? We're in December.
39th episode now, and thank you for all your engaging comments, all the guests that we've had on.
And all our supporters too, man.
It's been a blast, and thank you from the bottom of our hearts for you supporting the show. And please retweet, share, whatever you can. Tell your friends. Give us some reviews on the Apple Store, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, whatever. We're everywhere. On the bottom left of the screen is where you can find us live. So please share it with your friends. We appreciate it.
And if there's any questions or anything you guys want us to answer, you can always send it, while we're on the show. Again, just to echo what Mike said, thank you everybody for tuning in. This was a great episode tonight. We look forward to seeing you Thursday nights for episode 40, guys. 40, ladies and gentlemen, the Fan Experience Podcast, the Big 4-0. See, COVID,
midlife crisis.
Yeah, it's midlife crisis. But the Big 4-0 coming up on Thursday night. We look forward to having you guys on. And again, go to playthefielddating.com to find your MVP. Join the sports community. And it's on beta, so it's free. You don't have to worry about any fees or anything like that. But go to playthefielddating.com and find your mate.
Also one big shout out, and I will add the link to the comments on LinkedIn and share it as well. But this Thursday at noon, one of our previous guests, Andrew Knorr, who was the CEO of Ricody, he's going to be in a startup competition, the same one that Playing the Field was in a few weeks ago. Yep. Unfortunately, we did not advance. Ricody, took it by storm. Well, actually, Max at Sports Trace beat us.
Yes, and then, Max.
And then Ricody and Andrew beat Max in the last round, and he's in the final round with another great startup called FanSharp. And our previous guest, Mr. Larry Long Jr., will be emceeing this wonderful event. So I will be sure to share that on my LinkedIn. So please tune in and support Andrew and the other startup founder, Jeff, as they go head to head with Larry Long emceeing the event. So thank you again, everyone, for tuning in. We will see you Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, and we will bring Aaron on the show and talk some more Bleacher and also NFL and everything that he's got going on with his social media consultancy.
Nice.
Have a good night, everybody.
Night, everybody. See you on Thursday. Peace.
Do you want to meet other sports enthusiasts like yourself? Playing the Field can help you connect with people who love sports as much as you do. For friendship or romance. You can showcase up to 5 of your favorite teams on your profile trading card to make it easier to find fellow sports fans. Now you can talk about sports, go to the games, or play sports with others who share your interests. Find out more at playthefieldnow.com.